Welcome back to the show. Today's episode is one I've been chewing on for a while, and I already know it's going to step on some toes, but hopefully in a good way. The kind of stepping that makes you stop and check if that pain is actually yours, or, I don't know, something you've been carrying around from the last 5 relationships. I think we've turned red flags into this sort of TikTok trend, yeah? A checklist, a meme, or like a convenient way to ghost people and call it protecting our peace. Don't get me wrong, some of you guys do need to run, like, immediately. But most of us, I don't think you're spotting red flags, to be honest. I think you're spotting your own fear. I think a lot of us are mistaking the ache of vulnerability for danger. And rightfully so, our nervous system has been through a lot, but that isn't what healing is. So today I want to talk about how fear dresses up as what we would call discernment, and how our nervous system rewrites stories. And lastly, how to stop throwing away connections just because they don't feel instantly safe. So let's get into it. First things first, this obsession didn't come out of nowhere. The internet handed us bite-sized therapy. You might know it as pop psychology or therapy speak. And if you've followed or liked any one of these pages or posts, you've probably seen it all over the place, whether it's through your friends' stories or explore page or in DMs, threads about healthy relationship, all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing inherently evil about all of this. I've benefited a lot from these pages. I mean, it's kind of why I think my page is as successful as it has been. People love to be encouraged and they love to have their internal biases validated. And while I'm not a real therapist or anything like that, I am a real person, and all I'm doing is literally writing out my thoughts. I think we all have this innate desire online to just feel like we've been seen. But the problem is, when everyone's quoting the same 5 slogans all the time, without any context given, then what we end up with is hypervigilance disguised as empowerment. You know these quotes. I've probably posted some sort of variant of one of these. Some of the more popular ones are, if they wanted to, they would. I think I did something recently like, if they wanted to, they would, because when you wanted to, you did. And I didn't really give too much context, but that one kind of pissed some people off. Another one is protect your peace. This is one that I really hate and kind of really disliked since I've heard it, I think, a decade ago or something. And then another familiar one might be something like, you don't owe anyone anything. So again, these are all true to some degree, but also these are kind of most often just weaponized to protect someone's arrogance. You see, when we take complex emotional experiences and boil them down to slogans, we forget that relationships require discomfort. In this discomfort, we see growth and also a lot of nuance. For example, sometimes people don't respond right away because they're busy. Sometimes they really are scared or neurodivergent. Not everybody is out there to try and manipulate you. If you've ever been betrayed or gaslit, your nervous system is doing what it was trained to do, right? And that's just simply to scan for danger. And then that's where all of this hypervigilance comes in. A study from Cleveland Clinic points out that hypervigilance is a common trauma response. You see, people who are hyper alert do catch more red flags, but more often than not, they also see danger where there is none. It's like that smoke detector that I know everybody has had in their house that goes off every single time you toast a bagel. Any small amount of smoke just gets that thing screeching. And you're over there trying to fan away whatever faint smoke there is with a rag or a towel. It's not the smoke alarm's fault that it does what it's supposed to do, but it is your responsibility to air out the small space that all that smoke is getting to. It's your responsibility to check yourself, to think logically about all these things. So let's walk through some examples of what we would call false positives, when something is not actually a red flag, But maybe because you've been so trained to scan for things due to trauma, your default is always going to be a false positive. Scenario one, you've ever been in a situation where, someone doesn't text you back for like, I don't know, 2, 4, 6 hours? What happens? You start to spiral. Like, oh, they're ghosting me, red flag. Or, oh, shoot, they freaking hate me. I'm the worst person ever. Or, good God, they can't even tell me they're busy or anything. Like, this is going to be a telltale sign that they can't even communicate. No, they could have been in meetings. Maybe their social battery was low. Maybe they've been thinking all day how to respond with care. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, but why don't they just text that, they're busy or they're stressed or they're thinking about how to respond and they'll get back to you later? My friend, you are literally constructing that social expectation that you are finding yourself imprisoned in, right? We love to tear down social constructs, but at the same time, it seems like we're not realizing when we're hurting ourselves because of the new expectations that we're building in society. There's a million reasons why somebody doesn't live with their phone sewed onto their fingers. It's not always neglect. Sometimes it's pacing. Sometimes it's healthy boundaries this person could have with their phone. I don't know. There's a million ways. Doesn't have to mean it's intentional neglect. Maybe you've been in a situation like I have 100 times where somebody says something kind of off or that didn't quite make sense at first because, communicating is freaking hard. And what they said kind of stings a little or kind of, you know, triggers something in you. And you think, oh my gosh, they're gaslighting me. Or, oh my gosh, they're trying to manipulate me. Or maybe, maybe they're just an awkward person. Or maybe they're currently stressed. Or maybe they didn't know how it would land or how they're sounding. Because again, having a conversation with somebody that doesn't live in your head 24/7 is kind of difficult. Or what if you're in a brand new relationship and things are going great, right? You've had a fun, fantastic first few dates and you're getting really into this person. And so you feel comfortable expressing a little more or using a little bit more intimate language. And maybe and what if that person, starts to flinch a little bit romantically, mentally, whatever, as you guys are getting close, they're starting to kind of pull back or maybe are unsure about some things. That could actually be because maybe they're scared. Maybe they've never had slowness modeled to them. Maybe they've never had something that's healthy modeled to them, and their brain doesn't know how to respond. They could be lying to themselves, they're thinking. Communicating is hard. You see, we need to stop confusing different with dangerous. Because a lot of what we call toxicity is actually just unfamiliarity. And you see, unfamiliar doesn't mean unsafe. There are plenty of new experiences I know you've had in your life that you were afraid to go into or to experience because you've never done something like that before. I remember my whole life I was terrified to get on planes because I thought we were going to crash and die. Ironically, at the age of 27, I rode on a plane for the first time in my life, was terrified before the plane took off, and I remember feeling so energized and in amazement as that plane actually took off and I was looking out that window and I could see everything below me get smaller and smaller and smaller as we got higher and higher. And then suddenly I felt this immense rush of wonder come over me as I looked at the earth below me. And I left that experience in awe of just the beauty that existence has to offer. And how someone like me could be so high up in the sky that everything below becomes more and more unrecognizable the higher we climbed up. The unfamiliar doesn't always mean the unsafe. You see, I don't think most of us are actually scared of red flags. I think we're just scared of being seen. Because if somebody sees us and stays, then we have to stay too. And that means at some point I'm going to get tired being myself under this full suit of armor. I'm going to have to drop this at some point. I'm going to have to be myself. I can't pretend to be someone else or somebody that this person likes or somebody that I think this person likes. And that means then that you have to risk everything. And so if you've been abandoned or cheated on, you've felt discarded in your life, you've probably taught yourself that the best way to stay safe in love is to leave first, or to deny it, or to reject it, or to second guess it, to scan for flaws, to find reasons not to attach, to trust. Here's the thing: insecure attachment styles are actually deeply linked to mental well being. Check this out. Last year in 2024, a study of nearly 400 adults showed researchers that people with insecure attachment styles, especially the avoidant or approval seeking ones, reported significantly lower psychological health than securely attached people. In other words, if you're always interpreting discomfort as danger, you might also be cutting yourself off from connection. And that isolation is what eats up at your well being. So, how do you tell danger from discomfort then? That's what we call discernment. How do we discern between what makes me uncomfortable versus what is actually a really big sign of danger? Well, I think we can do so by adding two more items into this checklist that we can ask ourselves before we consider, if something is dangerous or if we're just in discomfort. Because I'm not here to tell you to ignore your stomach, to ignore your gut. I'm just suggesting we learn how to calibrate. So we can ask ourselves three things. Is this a red flag? In other words, am I in actual harm right now? Has a boundary of mine been violated? Have I been blatantly lied to about something that could have or has compromised my safety? The second one is a different flag, and this is this a yellow flag? Yellow flag is, are we having a miscommunication right now? Is he not, are they not, is she not understanding what I'm saying, what I'm trying to communicate? Or are there different needs right now? Are there patterns before me that are unfamiliar? And lastly, the third item we should bring with our flags is this, a mirror. So we ask ourselves, is this a mirror? Is what is happening right now triggering my past? Maybe what they're doing, what I'm seeing, what I heard, what I'm witnessing, what I'm thinking is triggering something in me, but it isn't inherently wrong. When you feel triggered, pause and ask yourself, is this a wound or is this a warning? If it's a wound, then reflect. Maybe journal, turn it into art, write about it. It's what I do. I love that. It helps me understand my emotions so freaking much to make them tangible. I feel like I can rule over them. I feel like I can see them for what they are. If it's not a wound, then it's a warning. That's when you set boundaries. That's when you start to observe. You protect yourself with clarity, not assumptions. How do you get clarity? You ever heard the phrase, ask a clarifying question? You see, when you give each other the permission to speak into each other's lives or to speak with the intention of the betterment of that person's life, you then ask for clarity without fear of rejection or guilt or shame, because ultimately those questions are stemming from a bed of desire for this person. Should be, to keep them safe, to honor them, to see them grow. So we don't get offended by clarifying questions. We don't take these things personally. We communicate. So here's what I want to leave you with in this episode. Everybody's healing, right? Everybody who's listening to this, I would assume, is in the business of healing something. So then understand that healing isn't about becoming so smart, so educated that you never get hurt again. No. My friends, you can be in a season of just health and prosperity. You really can. You can truly live weeks, months, years, a decade, being in a healthy state of mind, having accomplished so much, whatever, just had the best experiences of your life. It's fine to get hurt again. Because healing initially should be about being able to build the capacity to sit with uncertainty so that you could differentiate discomfort from danger and then allow yourself to stay when it's actually safe enough to stay. See, not everything is a red flag. Sometimes it's your nervous system yelling from a place of love and fear. So it's totally okay to communicate with somebody, be like, hey, I need to ask you something that I know comes from a place of fear in my heart because of some past experiences I've had. So please know that what I want to ask you is not a sign of anything other than a trauma response. And I don't want to live and exist in this relationship with that in the back of my head. The moment that you realize that sometimes it's your inner child reaching for the exit, sometimes it's just Tuesday. Let yourself be surprised. Let people surprise you. Let nuance exist. Reject the binary and let your own softness lead the way back. And the next time you start to feel yourself spiral when things are getting good with yourself or with life or at work or with somebody you're seeing, ask yourself, am I reacting to this person or am I reacting to my past?